Hi everyone, my name is Z, and I have been getting the call to really introduce myself or reintroduce myself. This channel has been around for a while, but it's only been in the last maybe a couple of months that things took off literally overnight. And so I wanted to reintroduce myself, but also let you know who I am so you feel safe in this space. And there's been folks who have been asking about me. And aside from the one video that's on my main page that's really short, there's not really much about me, so I figured I would make a video. And my ancestors and spirit and guides have been guiding me to introduce myself, and also tell my story, because I am also a firm believer that there is healing in our story for other people. And so I always encourage folks to share as much as they can. So I'm just going to tell you about myself and just open up. So I go by Z, but my English name is Alicia Eisler. Before that, before I got the married name, my other name was Alicia Sims-King. And my African name, which is Ngozi, Okachi. I always say it wrong. I never remember. I was asking someone who knew some Swahili and they could barely even tell me what it was, and I never remember. When I was born, my parents actually had folks from Africa come out and bless me, just like the Lion King, and give me that name. It means a gift from God. And I come from a very diverse family. My mom was the youngest of 10. My dad, I don't really remember how many siblings he has or had. A lot of them passed away. We've only really started reconnecting in the last maybe year and a half or 2 years or so. And that's why you see that photo on my page with my younger brothers that I actually met this year for the first time. And I have 3 older sisters, one sister who is 2 weeks older than me, and then 2 sisters who are like 6 and 7 years older than me, and then the 2 younger brothers. And I mostly spent a lot of time with my mom, not so much with my dad because they were divorced. My mom came from the political realm, heavily involved in computer sciences and things like that. Like, she would build computers. She loves that, which is kind of where I get my techie side. And then my dad was in the Air Force and he did a lot of ops and things like that. So, you know, I always try to poke at him and get him to tell me about his secret missions. It never works. So that's why I also share a lot of stuff around safety. And you know, I consider myself a musician, an activist, and a healer, or an artist, activist, and healer, because I use all of my art forms. I'm a creator in the truest sense, but I come from the sciences, and I believe in activism. And I also have a ton of gifts that I love to help heal people with. And my auntie was also a Black Panther, so that runs in our family, to protect at all costs in the truest sense. And they have passed, but they teach me a lot of what I know about activism, because they were also kind of the black sheep in the family, which is basically my role. And I, again, like, grew up mostly with my mom and my 2 older sisters. I went to like a Catholic middle school. My mom was in the political realm. She worked at the capital of California in Sacramento, which is my hometown. Political stuff went down in a very sketchy way. I'm not going to get into it. And that kind of led on our train of like financial instability and houselessness. And you know, my mom grew up very impoverished as well. So being involved in the community has always been big for her. So she put us into Catholic school, not because she was Catholic, but because at the time she believed that she didn't want us to grow up selfish. Like a lot of people in that school was really good at giving back to the community. And so we went to that school. I ended up getting, you know, scholarships and stuff for high school, another private all girls high school, and that was a very interesting journey. But I got a lot into the arts and the sciences. That's where I started learning French. I refused actually to learn Spanish, not because of like people or anything like that. It was because I always felt really disconnected from my family. um, and so everybody was learning Spanish, and one of my grandmas spoke Portuguese, and so I really wanted to be different, not understanding what that would actually do to me. I mean, I did eventually end up learning Spanish because that was ridiculous, but that kind of kicked off my like fine arts type of thing, because I ended up doing like French and dance and chemistry, and then that kind of trickled over into college as well, and like my fashion. But high school was really hard. And ever since I was little, I've always been super gifted in terms of walking the realms, so the physical realm and the spiritual realm. And my family like has always rejected those gifts in me. Um, it feels mostly out of fear, and you know, having conversations with my father, since a big portion of his family were from New Orleans, and we're also extremely gifted. So I get it from both sides, a lot of my indigenous side from my mom's side, and then um, you know, the New Orleans hoodoo, voodoo, Haitian, Jamaican, like a bunch of things from my dad's side. Um, but they also grew up all over the world, which is why I'm also super mixed. Um, and he has always been scared of it. So that was always infused into my own way of thinking, that I should fear myself and my own gifts and what I could do. Um, and so I grew up like not really talking about my gifts. I often, like when I was younger, would cry myself to sleep. um, and you know, I feel like that's kind of common sometimes with kids who have parents that don't understand their gifts, or feeling really isolated to the point where, you know, like people just don't believe you, and that's what it felt like. And so I learned to lean into the spiritual realm as my family more so than my physical family. And then I just hid it. I didn't really tell anybody. So I developed my my gifts on my own with my ancestors and guides and folks on the other side. Um, and for a long time, it scared me because I didn't have anybody to talk to until I got way older, and the ancestors kind of started leading me to people who could help me, because it was getting like to the point where I couldn't manage it. And um, I ended up going to um, so in high school, I didn't have the best time. Like I'm actually like I'm very introverted, but learned to be extroverted so that people could like me. Like that was part of my trauma cycle. But I'm also a very loving and bubbly, happy person. Um, and So I knew that on some subconscious level that I had to be able to fit in some way. Otherwise, I would always feel like left out. And so I learned how to like be entertaining or feel safe for people or heal them, so I could have a better environment, because I also knew what my gifts could do and how positive of an effect that it had on people. And so that's just what I did, um, to my own detriment sometimes. And while I was in high school, and similar kind of in middle school, I always did my own thing. Like I was never big on trends, and so I had a lot of like love hate relationships with people, and I had like one or two best friends, and I was very emo. You know, did skateboarding, like BMX, video games. I was just an interesting person, but I was also really smart. And it wasn't until I got older that I also learned that I am autistic. um, and so I learned to mask really well, and I didn't know that I was doing it. And my mother didn't really know like how to handle it either. And she had told me recently about how I would come and sit in the car after like kindergarten, because I never liked kindergarten because it was boring. Like I was like, I don't understand why we're tracing letters. Like, why can't these kids write? You know, like that was my energy. I just have always learned really fast. And so she was like, you'd get in the car and just be like, finally they realized my potential and put me in a different class instead of with those babies, you know. And I, you know, like finished Hooked on Phonics in like a day when I got it, and I was like building tiny alarms and doing really weird things. And also going outside and healing myself with plants. Like I would cut myself and I would grab plants and I'd put it on my skin and heal myself. Um, and I'd like, obviously you don't know where it comes from, but it's important. And so that was kind of how I grew up. And high school, I did a lot of dance, singing, French, chemistry, had friends, but still didn't really fit in. I didn't like the whole vibe either of theater, because I was like, I don't really like being in the group, but I know I have to be extroverted. Like this has like been my story in every like part of my life. And then I ended up getting accepted into college, like not too far, or university not too far from my hometown, and I was accepted for chemistry because I love chemistry. And I got into the department and I hated it. There was a lot of cheating. It was very stressful. I was also in a sorority at the time, and so a lot of people had old tests and just like weren't really students or learning or anything like that. And I was actually really unhappy in the sciences, but I love the sciences. But I was also trying to process my own trauma and trying to pay for school. And I, you know, I was doing really well in lecture. Like I distinctly remember I had a chat with my chem professor because I always did, like I would fail all the time in lecture, but then in lab where you actually had to, you know, they would give you a vial and then they're like, figure out what it is. And I would always do really well. And I ended up getting like a lot of the highest grades and learning how to make aspirin and having the highest purity and things like that. And it didn't matter. It didn't matter. And so my professor sat me down and like basically told me to leave the chemistry department because I was failing in lecture. And so I had told them, you know, like, well, you leave the classroom and everybody starts cheating, but I don't want to cheat. Like, it's not ethical. And then she still told me to leave. And so I was like, fine, I will. Like, I'm not happy here anyways. And I was like carrying around my lab book in lab because people would come over and copy it. And so I never really felt safe in the chem department anyways, and honestly it was probably the best thing that happened to me. And I ended up switching over to a BA in French studies, no, French lit and film. And so that's when I started really started digging into the arts, like becoming the president of the French Honor Society. And then I started to have a really hard time because I experienced a really bad, and just trigger warning for everybody, I had a really bad assault, like really, really bad. And it was very traumatic. I talk about a little bit of it, not in detail, in my book actually, which tells a small portion of my life with like current events. And I'm writing more of them. and it's about generational healing and reflections and activism, and it has affirmations. So you're welcome to check it out. It's also on Audible, and there's hard copies, and it's called the Empowered Femme Initiation, and you can just go to theempoweredfeminitiation.com. And so it was really hard after that. Like, it was really hard not to want to fail or like leave school or um, give up on life in general. And it got really hard because a lot of my sorority sisters had like turned their backs on me and like started creating rumors, so college became really, really difficult to be in. And so I just submerged myself into the arts as much as I could. And I was already falling behind because I had switched majors, and if it wasn't for one of my favorite French professors who actually ended up they ended up getting fired, and they were pretty certain that they were fired because they were queer. And I actually thought the same thing, but they took me under their wing, and they made special classes for me in French where I would learn like Quebecois and studied other advanced concepts. And I would just go to their office and they would teach me one-on-one so that I can get credits. So some quarters I was taking like 22 units, and like, 15 was like a lot. So I was really pushing, and she was making sure that I was going to graduate. And I actually started excelling, and then I got like honored in my sorority. And so life started to look up. Um, and, I also had a hard time during my assault because my partner at the time had blamed me for it. And so I had also experienced a lot of assault when I was younger. And it kind of embedded in me that, men weren't necessarily safe to be around, even though that's not the case. But it was my own healing and things that I need to make peace with. And also, not having a relationship with my father, or like an example of what a good and healthy relationship could look like. And so I ended up meeting someone in college, and we were together for like almost 10 years. And we got married, and I had like unexpectedly gotten pregnant and I ended up losing my child, and that was also really, really hard. And being a medium, it was really, really hard, and you would think it would be easier to be able to heal, but I actually wasn't able to connect with my child, even though I knew they were there for a very long time, a really, really long time, because I felt like I had like failed them in a lot of ways. Um, but looking back, like, it was one of the most powerful things that could have happened in my life, because I know that if I had that child, I would have stayed in something that wasn't aligned with my purpose and where I am today. And I don't harbor like any ill feelings toward my ex-husband or anything. We were just two people who didn't have the tools and the resources and the understanding of who we were and what we needed to thrive and succeed and not cause harm to each other. And I also talk about that journey in my book. And we went through a lot of trials, like a lot. And, I do not wish divorce on anybody. And I don't think anyone will ever understand the pain of a divorce unless you go through it. Like, there's no like word for it. And there was someone who had told me, who had never been married or divorced, like, oh, like, happy liberation. And and I knew what they were trying to say, but you know, I was like, I wish this on nobody. Like, I haven't been outside in months and I don't know how to eat anymore. So I don't really consider it a happy liberation, maybe down the road. Um, but it was a big turning point in my life. And, you know, it was around that time that the ancestors and my gifts really started to open up. The like minute I got divorced, they came and kind of swooped me up and led me to my own place. And I had bought my own car, and I remember just sitting there kissing the steering wheel, because for a long time I had to drive like this car that wasn't safe, like, whatsoever. And so that moment where I called her Queen Sheba, and it was like a sport, like, four-wheel drive car, and it was like my like such a dream, and I just broke down and started crying. And I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life at all. I didn't know in college. I just kind of kept going to take care of myself. But I knew that spirit and ancestors were all around me. Like, they had led me there, and I found that place. It was beautiful. Like, I wanted a place that was like all white inside, fresh and clean, and I had all these amazing plants. And I talk about it sometimes in my videos about how I healed from my divorce, and while COVID was a like awful thing to happen, my divorce happened during COVID, and I was really grateful for that, because it kind of, not kind of, it forced me to be with myself and my emotions. And where I moved, it turned out I had friends on like every block that I didn't know lived there. And so one of them would bring their pity over, and they watched over me a lot. Um, and like, I love food trucks, like, um, and there was also this person who sold like elote outside every day, and so it was just very like strongly curated, and from the divine. And like, it was very hard being in that space by myself. And I talk about in some of the videos how, like, I slowly began to like get up and breathe without it hurting, and, you know, opening the blinds, and healing from past like PTSD and things like that. And that's why I help people do it, because I know how to do it and I've done it many times. And I know how the brain works, and chemistry and spirituality and health and things like that. So I combine it all together. But back then, I didn't see this path of healing. And I was working for a company in the fashion space, but it was like half fashion, half science, because I was a developer. And I would go to Asia and travel for work, and it was a lot of fun, but it was also really hard. And I was really stepping into my activist energy then, and like helping to start a Black ERG, and, you know, George Floyd had passed, and so I was experiencing my own things as well personally, and I had decided to leave that job, and I had made a promise to myself that I would never allow anybody to feel the pain that I felt through my divorce, through my childhood, through leaving that job, through many things, lessons I had learned. And so that first apartment with that car really was a catalyst for where I am today. And it was also the first time that I learned that I could call spirits into my body, which I didn't know was a thing. Like, my ancestors told me that, like, I had certain gifts, but that I would discover them. And so I, in the truest sense, called ancestors into my stomach, to give me the strength and the resilience. But my verbiage was slightly off, which I learned later. And I spirit sent me a healer, and I love this person. Their name is Gabby, and they're still the only person that I go to for healing on my body. It's the only one I trust in like this whole world. And I trust them with my life. And I didn't tell them what I did, but I just told them that I was experiencing a lot of pain. And I was for a long time, and I was like sick to my stomach, and like I was seeing spirits, like it was just like out of a movie. And I felt really strong though. I felt strong, but also like I was gonna pop. And she like put her hands on my stomach, and she's a very angelic, out of this world person, and she sings as she heals, and she channels everything, and she just starts crying, and she's like, I've never seen, like, she's like, this is the longest line of ancestors I've ever seen in one person. And I kept seeing them because I kept seeing, like, I would fall asleep and they would send me through time, and I would meet them. And I saw people like during slave times and on ships and like all sorts of stuff, and they could see me, but their captors couldn't see me. And so that's how I learned to do a lot as well, because they were teaching me how to stay hidden. So even though it was a mistake, it became a gift of learning, and them also protecting me and telling me like when to leave, when to go, because if their captor knew that they were up to something, it would put them at risk. And so I couldn't risk them, during that time, because then that would mean all things, right? So that's for another day. But I learned a lot about my spiritual gifts, and so it was the first time in my life that I could really expand into who I was on a spiritual level and on a personal level, and trust it, because I started to receive people who could help me and who understood me without judgment. And I would go to the beach a lot. I did my herbal medicine that would find me. And I spent a lot of time by myself. And then my other friend, who was also going through a divorce, which there's a podcast about us talking about our divorce. And we would park our cars, because it was COVID. We park our cars at the beach. We'd be in our cars, and we would just like smoke. We would smoke, and we would just eat food, and we would talk, and like hang our feet out the windows and just like catch up on life, because we couldn't like be near each other, but we were missing each other. And then eventually we were able to like, be around each other's energy, and it began this whole like healing journey of working with the elements on so many different levels. And we would meet up with other friends and like swim naked in the beach and at nighttime and smoke. We were always doing that. We're very ancestral, and I make this mix from cacao, and I like to call it Buujee Surprise, and she always loved it. Shout out to you, Alva, heart you. And it was a very healing thing, and the ancestors had gifted me that recipe. And so that time was like a very magical time. Started going to moon circles, healing with other women, became an herbalist. I learned everything I could at that place that my friends owned. How to naturally take care of my hair, and I learned there were a lot of people from the Middle East too, so they taught us about skincare and bathing in salt and all sorts of stuff. And then I kind of set out on my journey, ended up in another relationship, and learned a lot of lessons. And it really evolved my character, being almost houseless again, and a lot of divine intervention. It was like as the time went by, my gifts got stronger and stronger. And then as my gifts got stronger, I realized that I was still giving my gifts to other people. And also being taken advantage of, but not realizing that I was allowing that to be taken advantage of. So going through all of that led me into writing that book and telling my story, and then allowing the ancestors to step in and bring me to the right teachers. That's how I found my teacher in the Himalayas, my other one in the UK who's also Jamaican, like me. And then I actually went to New Orleans because ancestors led me there, and I found where everybody was buried because they told me. And that's when I discovered my own gifts, and my like possession part stepped out even more while I was there. And it's always really funny because if you just see random things happen to me while I'm there, it's just spirits, just energy. um and I joke about it, but like I would be in the shower and the door would just be like opening and closing. And for someone like me, like I'm used to that. But for other people, it's kind of weird. It was like, can you not do that? It would like slam, right? Or like someone would yank my hair. I'm like, you can just get my attention in any other way. Um, so it's always been like a really interesting journey for myself. And um, these gifts really allowed me to get the opportunities like being on TV. Um, and as I traveled, I developed a lot of my seeing gift. Like,
Sorry.
it's okay. like, really being able to see the future
Yeah,
and
you.
like teaching it to people. And I didn't know that I could do that for the longest time, and how accurate it was. And it wasn't just the future, it was like all timelines happening at once and unfolding in every single minute of my day. And it started to become overwhelming, which was why the ancestors were having me travel, because I needed to go to new teachers, I needed to be on new land, I needed to meet new physical ancestors that were in other places, and greet other plants that are not indigenous here. So um, as that started to grow, I became better at manifesting. Again, that's how I ended up on the show. That's how I ended up doing a lot of my music and meeting the great people that I met. And, even recently, um, meeting someone who used to tour with Willie Nelson, and them giving me knowledge about how to navigate the music industry. Priceless information, really. Um, all of my experiences, from my trauma to like my financial hardship, and giving away way too much. Like, that was something that I learned since I was younger, of like not understanding my own value, my own worth, because I never felt worthy in my own family. And so I had to learn how to develop that through the spiritual realm, which then taught me how to manifest people who would value me. But I had to value myself first in order for them to be there, and be able to see the people who were in my life that were already valuing me. And then, in relationships, allowing to feel safe with men again, or like masculine energy, even if it's like a masculine feminine. And you know um not getting like angry, because there was a part of me that like I would get really angry like really easily, because there was so much pain that needed to come out. And as I always say, like, anger masks fear and sadness. Um and so I also learned how to heal my sacred rage, because I needed to. I couldn't be in that level of anger all the time, mad at the world. And as an activist, it's not helpful. As a healer, it's not helpful. Um, there is a time when you can use it to alchemize, but it's not your natural it's not your nature to be in that stage, and it's harmful to other people. But sometimes it is justified in my eyes. Um, and so all of my experiences from when I was younger, and learning how to love myself and feeling safe again, got me to this very moment, which is why I specialize in helping people heal who are also gifted, because um, there's a large portion of people in the world, like, everybody has gifts, but not everybody uses them, and not everybody knows how to use them. Not everybody knows it's safe. And we've also been like taught to believe that our gifts are bad, especially if you are a person of color. Like our gifts are bad, right? Like you even think about, because I've been talking to my friend about Papa Legba, and Papa Legba was a huge proponent in there's like seal playing right there, and it's really cute, in teaching me about hoodoo and voodoo. And so if I would have believed everything that I saw, or TV had talked about him, like I would have never been able to help people. Like Papa Legba has the most loving energy. He's literally like a grandpa. He's like a grandpa. You usually call him Papa. um, and uh, many deities, um, many energies are a lot more loving than we think. And if it wasn't for them and my ancestors in spirit, I wouldn't be where I am today. And so, like, I don't like, full transparency, like I'm not the type of person to sit here and tell you that I have some sort of plan for where I'm going. In fact, when I plan, it never works because it's not supposed to be like that. And you'll find that as you go on your, spiritual awakening journey, when you plan is when your path becomes the most resistant in some senses. Like if your ancestors are telling you to move, just move. If you resist that, it gets harder. But if you try and predict everything out of fear or whatever it may be, it begins to crumble. And so there's this type of fluidity and surrender that you have to be able to grow and expand and turn into the person that you are today. And music is a huge part of my life. It always has been. I'm a classically trained singer. I did a lot of like opera. Opera, I don't do it anymore. I did musicals as well. And spirit has been leading me down that path, and I don't know where it's gonna go. Who knows? But I just keep going. And I just really wanted to share that with all of you. This was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, but spirit also dropped the tripod into my bag like 3 times. So I figured, you know what? Why not? And I will say, for anybody who made it this far, I heart you. If you made it this far, I want you to put some heart emojis at the bottom and put like a clover, so I know, right? That you are always in the right place at the right time, and it's okay to not know where you're going or know what to do next, or like, it's okay to just be okay. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay to feel okay while you're by yourself, and it's okay to not feel okay while you're by yourself. Because, like, spirituality on social media also kind of depicts it as this, like, hyper individualism that is easy, and like I only do this for myself and all these things, but it's not easy, and most of us don't do it for ourselves. Like, we do it for other people, which is why I'm an activist. And it's okay to say that you're having a bad day, and it's okay to say that you're having a great day, and it's okay to be scared if Papa Legba pops up in your dreams, and it's okay to be nervous if, like, Lord Shiva shows up in your energy one day. All that matters is that you just keep going, and you don't harm anybody, and that you love yourself. And I will say that no matter how hard you try as a seer to predict time, time is ever evolving. So don't worry about it. No matter how many readings and things you watch on YouTube, it's still going to be a surprise. It can be today, it can be tomorrow, it can be a year from now. And that's why you just stay in the moment as much as you can, as much as you freaking can. And don't be hard on yourself about the decisions that you make. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I feel like that is my story in a nutshell, is I could fit it into 40 minutes. I mean, obviously that's not my entire life. I have 35 years of things to share, but that was just what kind of wanted to come forward. And I also want to say to anybody who has experienced pain or trauma to their body, or have lost a loved one or a loved child, I'm sending you lots of love and hugs. And it gets easier, and some days it doesn't get easier. And there's a part of you that will always remember, and that's okay. That's okay. But you do make it, and you will get happier, and you will see the sun again, and you will believe in yourself again. So yeah, I just wanted to share that. And again, my name is Z. My music name is Buujee Savage. I'm very mixed. So many things. I don't even like to say the list because it's like 20 bajillion different things. And if you've been following this journey, thank you so much. Welcome to my channel. I hope you feel safe to always express yourself. I will be sharing as many channeled messages as I can. When energy allows, I don't just force myself to share. I share when spirit comes, or when I feel moved to say something, or when the ancestors come knocking on my door, or when Michael's at my door, which he has been lately. So go with the flow, and thank you all for voting in my music challenge. I really appreciate it. No matter the outcome, this has been a wild experience, advocating for myself and the music, and all of you advocating, and I'm receiving all of that love, and I'm sending you lots of love. And I hope that you know that Spirit loves you. Spirit also loves you. I'm gonna get going because this is a long goodbye. I'm one of those people. I'm either a long goodbye, or I just don't say goodbye because I don't remember, and I'll just like leave. Like, if like, where did she go? I'm probably way gone. Like, way gone. I'm like, oh, this energy's a lot. See you later. Take my bag of snacks and go. But yeah, I'll talk to you later, friends. Bye bye. Oh, don't forget to vote. It's in the description. Okay, bye.